In October 2019, in his first press conference after being re-elected, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said this.
We will continue to engage with Indigenous leadership across the country, Indigenous communities, strong voices to ensure that reconciliation isn't just a word that we use.
One of the most important issues surrounding reconciliation is land rights, and yet just a few months after Trudeau said these words, unrest mounted around the nation regarding plans to build a pipeline on traditional Wet'suwet'en territory in BC. So what do land rights have to do with reconciliation, and how did we get here? This is from a publication by the Union of BC Indian Chiefs. Every community has its own distinct history, a history of the land and people. Unfortunately, common to all Indigenous communities is the recent history of colonization, a history of dispossession and resistance. That recent history could begin arguably in 1763, when the royal proclamation issued by King George III stated, "Lands which not having been ceded to or purchased by us are still reserved to the said Indians as aforesaid." This recognized that all North American land would actually be considered Indigenous land until ceded by treaty or purchased by the Crown. Though to this day there have only been a handful of treaties in BC, and most of BC's land is still unceded. As colonialists continued to move in, various acts of Indigenous resistance occurred. In 1803, Newfoundland Chief Maquina led an attack on the British vessel the Boston in retaliation for continuous offenses committed by European ships. Maquina burned the Boston and killed all but 2 of its crew. In 1808, the Musqueam people prevented Simon Fraser from entering their territory and fulfilling his goal of reaching the Pacific Ocean by chasing him back up the river that now bears his name, the Fraser River. When the colonial BC government was formed in the mid-19th century, they claimed the land without treaty or purchase and then surveyed and sold it to non-Indigenous peoples. In response, there were countless meetings, petitions, rallies, and protests demonstrating their opposition against the dispossession of their traditional land. SINTEN, Dr. John Elliott, a Husainite elder of the Tartla Band, got involved with land rights and title issues in the 1970s.
Back in 1975, this is a kind of a resurgence of all that kind of thing that First Nations people like in BC especially. And there was a lot of things around land rights issues. We used to call it land claims. And I got working with my late brother-in-law, Philip Paul. He was working as an administrator at the Century Victoria called Land Claims Office. I was doing all the pamphlets and information around land rights issues. So I was already kind of involved with that. There was a bit of a movement happening, not just here in BC, but all in North America. I finished the tour of that stuff around BC and occupied the Department of Indian Affairs and went to roadblocks and blockading the road in Cold River. Visited all other blockades around BC, and we were drumming and singing to help support the ones that were doing their work.
Other notable incidents include the Oka crisis in 1989, where a small Quebec towns planned to expand a golf course over a traditional Mohawk burial ground, resulted in a 78-day-long standoff between Mohawk warriors and police, resulting in numerous casualties. Fast forward to 2020, and the provincially approved Coastal GasLink pipeline was planned to run through traditional Wet'suwet'en territory, which is unceded. When the RCMP moved onto their land to enforce an injunction, weeks of protests ensued around the nation in solidarity. As of May 2020, even though demonstrations have largely been ended, a mutual agreement on the land has still not yet been settled. John Elliott was one of those protesters earlier in the year.
We're standing up for what Creator has given them to take care of. We see that it's being destroyed day in and day out. It's time enough for all people to stand up and say that's enough. Let's not destroy it till the end. It's time to do better than that. Time to do better than that. If we're going to move forward with truth and reconciliation, tell the truth first. We are home. We're we're the original people of the land. And when will justice come? When will justice come to our people?
When will it come?